storytellers, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's rainy day reading vlog. So obviously, as you can see, I'm in the car and I'm headed to Dunkin' Donuts to get some breakfast because I goofed and all our eggs had expired and I didn't get more when I was last at the store. So we are just taking the quick breakfast way out, get some donuts, and then I'm pretty much gonna spend the day reading. That's pretty much it. I'm planning to just sort of stay low-fish and cozy and relaxed. Okay, so I've brought myself back into the bedroom. I finished eating and watching Cupcake Wars. And I've got my coffee still here, some books to read. But first order of business for me will be to finish reading Cursed by Thomas Wheeler. This is an Arthurian legend that follows the character Nimue. And I'm about 50 pages from the end, so I really wanted to finish this one up today for sure. So I just finished Cursed, and off the top of my head, I'd say it's about a 3, maybe 3.5 star read for me. I didn't dislike it or anything, but I definitely had trouble getting through this one. It took a while, and I don't usually have that issue with adaptations of Arthurian legend, so take of that what you will. I do agree with some of the criticism I saw of this book, which is that some of the side characters that come into play are far more interesting than Nimue herself, who is not a very great leader, nor is she very sympathetic as a character. You want to sympathize with her, given some of the things that she's gone through, but she just makes it really hard to do that. I don't know if it's part of her arc and she's meant to grow. The way it leaves off, it does leave a cliffhanger, leaving room for a continuation of the story. I haven't seen anything about a second book, so I don't know if it's meant to continue or if you're just sort of meant to be left wondering. It definitely felt like it was setting up almost too much. I mean, in the last 30 pages, we meet a new character. I felt like some of the characters that we already knew weren't fleshed out enough for it to be valid and worth it to introduce another new character so near the end. I think it makes it harder for you to feel anything for the characters because they're not as fleshed out as I wanted them to be. Merlin is written as being sort of impotent, so to speak, and a drunk, and I don't know if that's just because so many people will go into an Arthurian legend expecting the Merlin of lore, and they wanted to just turn that on its head, but it doesn't feel like it adds anything to his character. Even when you sort of get the backstory of why he might be the way he is, it felt like he was just written that way so that they were sort of subverting the Merlin expectations that somebody might come in with, and for no other reason besides that. Aside from having trouble emotionally connecting to Nimue, who the story is about, I did like some of the other characters. I liked Lancelot, I liked Arthur. It was definitely characters like Arthur and Lancelot that made it even kind of interesting. You get introduced to these characters from different Fae folk clans and the leaders and other characters from within those clans, and they're all more interesting than the two main people you're supposed to care about in this story. And it's kind of frustrating not to get their interesting stories at the very least after you're introduced to them, and you're stuck just sort of hearing about how Merlin and Nimue constantly make choices they regret and throw themselves pity parties, and it gets annoying. I realize that I'm getting angrier and more harsh about my criticism as I'm going on right now. I don't want to drop it from a 3. It's a solid read. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just not what I wanted personally out of an Arthurian adaptation. At this point in the game, I've read enough to know what I like, and some of the things that were done to sort of subvert expectations of Arthurian legend and make it different and unique, I just don't think were executed as well as they could have been. I also wasn't hugely fond of the writing style. At some points, it felt kind of too bland and unemotional to make it exciting as a fantasy. And there was a lot of telling instead of showing. There were a lot of moments like that, and it just took me out of the story, and I didn't connect with characters at these big emotional moments when you're supposed to connect with them and feel for them, because it was written in a way that made it very hard to do so. So I do have some critiques about this book, but I'm not upset that I read it. I don't think it's a bad read. It's just not my personal favorite adaptation of Arthurian legend, and that's all there is to it. So it's been a few hours. I've taken a break from reading to watch part of a movie and eat lunch and watch some more cooking TV shows. So just sort of vegging out for a little bit. But I was thinking, because it's rainy and wet, I might get into a cozy bath with a cup of tea, and instead of reading The Man in the Picture, which I will get to, I might tackle my Fangirl manga, Volume 1, which just showed up in the mail today, because I'm very excited about it, as you could tell from my Kath-inspired costume. I took inspiration from this cover, so I'm going to read that with some tea and a bath. So I took an hour to have a bath, drink my tea, and read all of Fangirl the Manga Volume 1, and then I took a shower to rinse off, and I have some thoughts about this. First off, I loved it. Second off, I'm actually really glad I bought it. I wasn't going to. I figured, man, they're just adapting a novel you already know you like, you already have. Why do you need it in this format? You really don't. But I decided, hey, it's your birthday in a couple days. Buy the manga if you want it. It's not that expensive. And you already know you like the story, so it's not like it's going to be a waste in that regard. But I was really surprised at how well this story adapted into being a manga. I thought that it would lose some of its sort of charm and the excitement and giddiness that I get when I read the novel about somebody in their freshman year of college who just wants to write creative stories inspired by fictional worlds she loves, and how she sort of is forced to confront real life in a way. Like I mentioned in my costume video, Kath is a total introvert, reader, writer, dork, and I fell in love with her instantly, and I have to say I fell in love with her all over again in this Volume 1 manga. It leaves off right at sort of the first big emotional beat moment. It's a great setup for the next volume, which I will definitely be pre-ordering as soon as I can, because I'm obsessed. Because obviously the manga doesn't give you the room to write out every little detail. You have to pick and choose, and you have to do a lot of it in visuals. And I thought that that would somehow take away from it, because contemporaries aren't that sort of rich, overdeveloped world that fantasies can be. They're often not as full of description, because you take for granted that people know what you're talking about because it's contemporary. It's set in a modern, relatively familiar setting, so you don't need to explain every little detail and show every little detail. But I thought they did a great balance between showing the most important scenes of the novel, but giving you that extra little relationship building moments between all of the characters. They seem so small, but they really make an impactful punch in between the sort of bigger scenes, if you will. This actually had possibly more emotional impact for me, more excitement, because it was mostly visuals and sort of dialogue. It almost had that feeling of like watching a movie where you're seeing a novel you love adapted on screen come to life, and you remember all the little details, so you can be right there in the moment with them without it being explained. And it's electric and exciting, and it almost felt like that reading this, and it just makes me want a film adaptation of Fangirl so bad, but also to reread the original novel and to really read it in physical copy so that I can take my time enjoying that world building around Kath and her life in college that Rainbow Rowell does in the novel. I think this was adapted beautifully and it was a lot of fun to read. 5 out of 5 stars. Can't wait for the next volume. I am getting ready to wind down for the night. We're waiting on dinner to arrive, and then I'm probably going to be turning in shortly thereafter. So I'm going to wrap this vlog up now. I might read a little bit before bed, but if I do, if I don't, you'll know based on what my wrap up is for the month, if I've made it through more books past the manga. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by leaving a like down below. And if you want to keep up with me and all of my bookish adventures, you can go ahead, click that subscribe button, and you should definitely ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat of Vlogoween or any of my other upcoming videos. I will see you guys tomorrow with a new one. Bye!